Have you ever changed your schedule, come back from a trip, or had a few unusually busy days, and suddenly your dog starts following you everywhere? Not in a dramatic way, just more than usual. They're behind you in the kitchen, outside the bathroom, getting up when you get up, settling closer than they normally do. And because that shift feels so obvious, a lot of owners land on the same conclusion right away. My dog is anxious now. But that may not be the clearest way to read it. Sometimes, when a routine changes, a dog gets closer not because something is deeply wrong, but because closeness is the fastest way back to what still feels familiar. That's the difference this video is about. Not whether the behavior matters. It does. But whether you're reading it too quickly. Because a dog following you more after a routine change may not be a big emotional warning sign. It may be a simple way of steadying themselves while life feels a little off. And once you see that pattern, your response gets calmer, clearer, and more useful.
Hidden dog signals. Understand your dog better.
This behavior stands out because it feels personal. Your dog is suddenly more tuned in to where you are. They follow you room to room. They settle near your feet instead of across the room. They seem more interested in staying close than they were a week ago. And when that happens right after travel, house guests, a work shift change, a stressful stretch at home, or even just a few days where normal life got messy, it can be surprisingly hard not to overthink it. Because on the surface, it looks emotional. It looks loaded. It looks like your dog is trying to tell you something big. And to be fair, they are telling you something. Just maybe not the thing owners usually assume. What you're seeing first is a change in proximity. Your dog is staying closer. Your dog is tracking you more. Your dog is using your location more than usual. That's the behavior. The meaning comes later. And this is where a lot of owners accidentally skip a step. They see the closeness, feel the change, and jump straight to a full emotional conclusion. But before you decide what this means, it helps to stay with what is actually happening. Your dog is following you more after life got less predictable. That's the part to lock onto first. The most common misread is simple. My dog is following me more, so my dog must be anxious. And honestly, that makes sense. If your dog suddenly seems more attached to your movement, more watchful, or more interested in staying near you, it's natural to think something is off. So the correction here is not, you're wrong for noticing. The correction is gentler than that. You noticed something real. The part to be careful with is turning one behavior into one fixed meaning too fast. Because following you more after routine changes does not automatically mean panic. It does not automatically mean your dog is becoming overly dependent. And it does not automatically mean the behavior is getting worse. Sometimes owners also make the behavior bigger by labeling the dog instead of reading the moment. Now my dog is clingy. Now my dog is needy. Now my dog has become too attached. But one phase of increased following is not the same thing as a personality shift. A lot of the time, what changed is not who your dog is. What changed is the rhythm around them. And when the rhythm changes, some dogs move closer. That's where owners often read the moment too quickly. A calmer way to read this is that your dog may be using proximity to stabilize after the routine stopped feeling normal. That's the strongest interpretation here. Not drama, not manipulation, not a sudden personality issue. Just proximity as a stabilizer. When daily life gets a little scrambled, many dogs seem to lean harder on what still feels predictable. A familiar path through the house. A familiar evening rhythm. A familiar person moving from room to room. And if the day no longer feels as readable as it usually does, staying closer can be one way of finding the most familiar thing left in the environment. That doesn't make the behavior meaningless. It makes it more specific. Your dog may not be following you because they're trying to say, something is terribly wrong. They may be following you because you are the clearest steady point in a day that has felt less steady than usual. That's a very different read. And it also explains why this behavior often shows up after disruption, after travel, after guests, after a schedule flip, after a few overstimulating days, after moments when normal cues stop arriving in the order your dog expects. The useful takeaway is not that every dog does this for the same reason. The useful takeaway is that increased following after change can be a form of recentering. Your dog moves closer. The day feels easier to read. Your dog settles faster. That pattern tells you more than the closeness alone. This is the part that matters most. The same behavior can look identical on the outside and mean something different depending on the context around it. If your dog follows you more for a day or two after travel, then settles as home life becomes normal again, that reads very differently from a dog whose closeness keeps intensifying across the week. If your dog stays near you but relaxes once they find you, that reads differently from a dog who stays near you and still can't settle. If the behavior shows up mostly after long, messy, overstimulating days, that tells a different story than a dog who suddenly seems unsettled all the time. So yes, the following matters, but what happens around it matters more. Watch when it starts. Watch what changed before it started. And watch whether your dog gets relief from proximity or just stays activated even while close. That contrast is one of the most useful things in the whole video. A dog who follows you, finds you, and softens may be using closeness to settle. A dog who follows you, finds you, and still seems restless may be showing you that the disruption is still affecting them more strongly. Same behavior on paper, different picture once you watch the full sequence. That's why it helps to stop asking, "Is my dog clingy now?" A better question is, what changed, and does being near me actually help my dog settle? Next time this happens, watch 3 things. First, what changed? Did you just get back from a trip? Has your work schedule shifted? Have meals, walks, rest times, or bedtime all drifted a little? Was the house fuller, louder, later, or more chaotic than usual? Second, what does the following actually look like? Is your dog simply staying near you more? Do they trail behind you, then lie down once they know where you are? Or do they keep popping up, checking, pacing, hovering, and struggling to relax even after they've found you? That difference matters because close and settled is not the same pattern as close but still activated. Third, what happens after a day or two of normal rhythm? Do they go back to their usual resting spots? Do they stop shadowing you quite so much? Do they seem more like themselves once the house feels predictable again? That recovery piece is huge, because the following itself is only the surface. What happens after tells you whether you're looking at a brief adjustment period or something that's not resolving on its own. So don't just watch the behavior. Watch the before, the body, and the recovery. That gives you a much clearer read than the label clingy ever will. The better response is usually not to make a big deal out of the behavior, and it's also not to push your dog away just because you're worried they're getting too attached. If the behavior looks lower intensity and your dog is settling once they're near you, a better response is often to make life easier to read again. Bring back the familiar structure. Tighten up the routine where you can. Make evenings calmer if the last few days have been busy. Keep transitions boring and predictable. Let your dog reconnect with the shape of normal life. You're not trying to train away every extra moment of closeness. You're trying to reduce the need for your dog to keep checking where stability is. And sometimes that means doing less, not more. Less reacting, less overinterpreting, less turning a temporary pattern into a major problem. If your dog follows you more after disruption and then settles once they're close, that may be a moment for steadiness, not correction. You become easier to read. The day becomes easier to read. Your dog usually has less reason to keep tracking you so closely. That is often the calmer shift that helps most. So if your dog starts following you more after a routine change, The clearest first read is not, "My dog is suddenly becoming anxious." Sometimes the better read is much simpler. Life changed. Your dog moved closer. Closeness helped things feel more stable again. That doesn't mean the behavior should be ignored. It means it should be read in context. Because what looks clingy from a distance can look a lot more like reassurance seeking once you slow down and watch the pattern. And that changes everything. You stop reacting to the behavior like it's a verdict. You start reading it like a signal. Your dog may not be telling you a huge emotional story. They may just be leaning harder on what still feels familiar while the day settles back into place. The behavior is small. The pattern is the signal. If you've seen this in your own dog, pay attention to what changed right before it started and whether closeness actually helps your dog settle. That one shift in observation will usually tell you more than the behavior alone ever could.
Hidden dog signals. Understand your dog better.